Now let's turn our attention to system database backups. This is prime example of a situation where once a failure occurs, you quickly get an education at something that you should have been paying more attention to, and that is backups of these system databases. We're going to talk about those right here, and you will most likely see some form of a system database backup scenario on the exam. SQL Server maintains a collection of system-level databases called system databases. These are essential for the operation of a SQL Server instance. As it turns out, if you dig around under the hood at the technical internals of SQL Server, what you ultimately find is every database that we create is simply a database that's created in SQL Server that's managed as a database in SQL Server. So actually, when we create a database, we're working on a database that is a database in SQL Server. These SQL Server system databases are, for example, the master database, the model database, MSDB, TempDB, and if you're using replication, you'll also see a distribution database. Let's jump out into SQL Server just a moment. I want to make sure you see these. If you expand system databases, you will see the master, the model, MSDB, and TempDB. Since we don't have replication working right now, we don't have the distribution database. But I can right click on these and choose tasks and then choose backup. For example, on the master database, notice I can only do a full backup, but I can back this up and I need to do that. The model database, real quick aside here, when we look at the model database, if we right click and go to properties on this, for example, the size of the model database, and we can look at files and we can see space available. We can go out to files and we can set initial sizes, and right now it's 8 megabytes. This is the location of it, and this is the auto growth functionalities. All of this stuff can be set on the model database. Here's how this is used. Anytime we create a new database, it's not building it from the ground up. It's actually making a copy of the model database and then applying any kind of customizations that we've applied that weren't on the model. So if you know that you want to create databases a certain size, a certain location, simply go out here and change the properties of the model, and your new databases will at least default to those settings. Then the MSDB database is the one that maintains all of our automation jobs and so forth. If you go out and open the MSDB database, look at the tables, there's information about our backups out here, log shipping, which we'll touch on a little bit later on. Let me make this a little wider. Then notice especially, if you come on down here, you'll see sys jobs, sys job history, activity servers, schedules, any of the automated jobs that we create out there, like our database maintenance wizards and all those things, those get saved in the MSDB database. So after you invest significant time in creating all this automation and particular jobs and so forth, you can back up the MSDB database. Right click, task, backup. Notice on these, on everything but the master, we can actually just do differentials. The system databases are absolutely necessary. The TempDB is just there for temporary storage during certain functionalities, and there's no need to back that up. Which ones should we back up periodically? By periodically, we need to be doing it, say, once a month, once a quarter, whatever you're comfortable with, but always need to back up system databases after a significant update or after significant changes have been made to your SQL Server, to your jobs, to your model database, anything like that. So always want to make sure that we have a good current backup of the master database, the MSDB database, the model database, and if we're using replication, the distribution database. Is it a deal killer if we don't have these backups and we have a failure? Well, no, it's not, but kind of is when you think about the solution, right? If we've got all this stuff set up and we don't have a copy of our MSDB database and we have a significant SQL Server failure, that just means we have to rebuild all of our jobs from square one again. That's not going to be a good weekend. System database backups allow you to just simply restore and recover the SQL Server system to exactly the same state it was before a failure occurred. There are some limitations on restoring these system databases. First of all, system database backups are what we call version specific. This means that you can only restore data from a backup that was created on the version of SQL Server that the server instance is currently running. You can't restore a backup that you made on a prior version on a new version, so you'll just have to watch for that. Bottom line, always maintain current system database backups. You're not going to have a problem. The SQL Server instance must be running to restore a system database. This becomes a challenge because if I've got a SQL Server that's in trouble, but it's in trouble to the level that I can't actually get the database to start, well, then I can't restore my system database. SQL Server will not start up if the master database is not accessible and usable. There's a number of tricks to try to force this thing into coming up and working at just enough of functionality to allow you to restore a database. But the master database can be restored from a current backup if you can just get it running well enough. But in a lot of instances, we're starting to get a little concerned about what's going on. And you can restore that master database and see if everything's working okay. But you can always rebuild the master database. And you can find that out in documentation for taking care of that. And I've put some in the working files folder for you, rebuilding system databases. Worst case scenario, the failure was so far reaching that you just have to reinstall a SQL Server. Not a problem. Since we've got good backups of our system databases, we can just restore these, then reattach our databases or restore them from backup, and we're back to working again. This is a very popular test topic historically across SQL Server exams. So read over Rebuilding System Databases, that document's out there in the Working Files folder. Just play with these, get some hands-on. This is going to be one of the major tasks and backups that you need to do as an administrator is keep regular backups of those system databases.